Welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here to leadingworshipwell.com/realtalk and submit your question for a future episode, and I just might answer it. Got some good questions this week. Let's talk about it. I lead worship with a guitar and 2 or 3 backup singers, also using tracks to add more instruments. We're a small church. I would like to know how you find musicians that are worshipers, and do you have any resources for obtaining information from people that are potential team members, like some sort of worship team application? Happy to purchase one from you. Always good to get to know folks before they join the team. How long do you make them wait before placing them in the schedule? Thanks. Well, thanks for your question, and just to answer the simple question, yes, I do, and you don't need to purchase it from me because I give it away for free right here. It's called the Worship Team Toolkit. So in that, you will find the application form. I share with you essentially the Google Doc that is the link that I send to people who are interested in joining the worship team. So you can find that linked in the description below. I also give you my code of conduct that I use for my team, so you can see what sort of expectations I hold for my team members, and then you'll need to adjust just some of the language to fit your specific context. But basically 95% of the work is done for you in that, and it's completely free. So check it out down in the description below, the Worship Team Toolkit. Now, how do we find people for our worship team? And I will point you to a paid product here because I put a lot of time into creating this training, and I haven't really talked about it too much on this channel here, but I did put together the Worship Team Growth Plan training, which I'll also link in the description below. In that training, which, by the way, I'm not just pointing you to a paid product, I'll give you some tangible steps here too. You don't need to buy that if you don't want to. But if you want more in-depth training, there's I think it's 2.5 hours worth of training walking you through the complete process of how I would go about growing my worship team, from starting with the team that you have, to how to ask people to join your worship team, to what the audition looks like, to how to actually implement them onto your team. So I obviously can't cover 2.5 hours worth of training in a YouTube video, so that's why I put together the training. You can check that out down in the description below. It's a Worship Team Growth Plan. Now, let's talk about what you can do, my quick thoughts for this. This is what I've mentioned before. Actually, also down there, free resource. I have I'm trying to think what it's called. It's how to grow your worship team, or how to build a worship team, the ultimate guide. I actually did a whole series on this. So if you want more information, check that out down there too. It's just a free resource fest, isn't it? Essentially, the process is this. I want you, if you're looking for more team members on your team, think of everyone in your church who has even the smallest potential of potentially serving on your worship team, and make a list of 3 to 5 people. And here's the key in this, because as you do it, you're going to be making excuses in your head. Well, this person can't do it because maybe they're not actually skilled enough. This person can't do it because they just had a baby and they won't want to commit to rehearsals on Thursday nights. This person can't do it because they've done it before and they got burnt out and they probably don't want to do it again. Don't make excuses for these people in your head of why they can't do it. We never want to say no for somebody else. We just want to ask them, and if they don't want to do it, that's fine if they say no, but we don't want to assume a no for them. I think that's poor leadership, and I do that. I'm calling myself out here. I frequently say, nah, that person probably wouldn't want to do that, instead of just asking them. So I think, depending on the size of your church, as long as you're not serving in a church of 20 people, I think you can find 3 to 5 people to ask. That doesn't mean that they'll ultimately join your team, but hopefully at least one of them does. And you make the list and you go and ask them. Now, the next step of it is that you need a process for them to go through. You need to think, okay, once I ask them, do you want to join my worship team? How are they actually getting on my worship team? And I think that's where a lot of worship leaders fall short, is that they don't know the process. And it's just well, come on Sunday, play with us, or come to a worship rehearsal, and you'll come to worship rehearsal for the next 3 years, but I have no plan to actually implement you into a Sunday service. And so you've got to have a plan. And I go through some of that in the playlist that I link down below, and I go into it even more in depth in the Worship Team Growth Plan that I've also linked down below. Essentially, though, they fill out an application form, they do an audition, they agree to the worship team code of conduct, they start coming to some rehearsals for a set amount of time, which we'll talk about that here in a second, and then they play with you on a Sunday and you work them into the regular rotation. That is a very condensed version of how I would do it, but I think that gives you the skin and bones of how to do it. Let's say, how long do you make them wait before placing them in the schedule? So let's talk about that specific question. I think it's okay to take this on a case-by-case basis. I don't think you have to say to everybody, after a month of you coming to worship rehearsal, you'll be on the team playing with us on Sunday mornings, because we do have a minimum threshold for people who join our worship team. We have a minimal musical threshold for them, but not everybody's quite ready to play on Sunday. That doesn't mean that they can't start coming to worship rehearsals. On the other hand, there's some people who might come to your church who've been playing in worship teams or playing an instrument for 20 years, and they don't need to learn the musical side of it. They just need to learn the organizational side of how you structure your worship team and how things are done. And once they learn that, they can join you on Sunday. That process is going to take a lot less time than the musical process of learning the musical side of leading worship, because that could take 3 months maybe. I've had some worship team members who we got together for 3 months before they joined me on a Sunday morning, and they weren't a bad musician. They were just figuring out how to play with the team, so that's another angle as well. So I think it's on a case-by-case basis. Use your judgment. Say, okay, I've identified you've met the minimum musical threshold you need to join the team, and I probably wouldn't say it like that, but essentially that's what I'm saying. But I don't think you're quite ready to play on Sunday yet, but we still want to develop you into somebody who can play on Sunday. So start coming to worship rehearsals and play along with us. See how things go, how we run rehearsals, and then through that practice, you will improve your musicianship over time, and we'll check back again in 2 months and see where you're at. And if we feel like you're ready, then you'll join us on Sundays. If you're not ready, we'll do 2 more months or 1 month, however, whatever vibe you're getting from them musically, and we'll check back in and just constantly keep it in front of them. I think the most frustrating part is for you to not be clear with them and say, I want you on the worship team, but you're not ready yet. And so just come, and then someday when I feel ready, I'll eventually tell you, but I'm not going to tell you when we're actually going to check in again. Just make sure you check in with them again. So make a list of 5 people. Don't say no for them. Ask them to join your team, but also have a system set up for them to join your team. And that is like the skin and bones, the bare minimum of how I would go about growing my worship team. And like I said, I've got a bunch of extra resources. I'll link them down in the description below, so check that out. How can I communicate to my worship leader that he needs to lead better? The reason I ask, here are the problems. He consistently starts late, gives set lists as we walk through the door of practice, including songs I've never heard before. Anyone can join. Someone joined who sits on a chair and pouts because they don't know the songs. Another lets children interrupt team members in prayer, play with the instruments, stand on the platform, and talk and distract the team members. It causes so much noise and chaos. No one knows who's leading or following. It's impossible to hear each other. I'm so irritable and have a headache at the end of practice. I'm ready to quit. I know God can help me learn through this, but I don't know what. I've been patient for a while. I talked to the leader, and things have actually gotten worse and more chaotic. People are off key, out of tempo, and I feel like I am made to look like a bad person for speaking up, but Christian or not, it's on my last nerve, and people think you're carnal if you want to do things decently and in order for the Lord. They imply it's okay to do poorly because the Holy Spirit will come in and bless it. Please help. I know I'm not the only one on a team like this. I feel like I'm losing friends. The atmosphere is not the same, like we were walking on eggshells and we used to be like family. Now things aren't the same. It frustrates me so much when I hear questions like this, not from the person asking the question, but just poor leadership in the church. I think that it is a bad look for the universal church, honestly. And that's why I think I'm so passionate about helping other worship leaders, is because I want us to lead our teams well. I want us to do it because we are called to equip the saints for the work of ministry, and if we are leading like we don't care, we aren't equipping the saints for the work of ministry, and we shouldn't be leaders in the church in the first place. So what would I do if I was in this situation? And just a caveat, like I don't ever see myself telling somebody, to quit a worship team unless it's like somebody serving in an unbiblical manner and there's some huge moral issue and they need to get out of there because of that. If it's just a leadership issue, my advice is honestly, it's never you need to quit the team. I just want to be very clear about that up front. So what does that mean that we do in the process? What do we do in the in-between if there isn't a good enough moral reason to quit the team? It's just the leadership is bad. I mean, I know I always talk about setting the example for people. If it's the leader, though, who's doing this, like, I don't know if you're going to set the example for them. Like, you can try to set the example, and that's definitely where you need to start. Whatever change you want to see on the worship team, you be the leader in that change, not like rallying people behind you, but by example, you be the leader in that change. And you do everything that you can, everything that you've learned from my videos, bring it up every chance you get, not in a mean way, but like if somebody ever asks for an opinion on something and you have the chance to speak into something, bring up what you know is right and do not be afraid to speak the truth. We don't do it in a condemning way, especially if we're not the leader. Like, we don't say like, this is how we need to do it, but just bring up your ideas. Say, man, I think it would be really helpful if we did this. And maybe just to compartmentalize those thoughts a little bit, just think like, I feel like you need to get some momentum going in your team. Just think, what is the smallest thing that frustrates me on my team? And let's just focus on fixing that. How am I going to fix that? I don't know what it is for you. You listed like 7 different problems on your team. What is the one thing on my team that is the most frustrating, that is small, and that I can fix within the next month, potentially? And just think, and brainstorm. What can I do to make an impact in this one area? And then just constantly have the conversation with the worship leader and tell them your frustrations. I feel like we as worship leaders should be humble enough. If somebody came up to me personally and they were like, listen, Spencer, like, you're only giving us the music when we show up at rehearsal. Like, I just can't, like, that doesn't work for me. I don't feel prepared on Sunday to lead when that happens. I would be like, you're right. Like, I need to do a better job. I need to do a better job. So don't be afraid to have those conversations. I think some really good things could come out of that if you handle it in the right way. So I just want to warn you, in the midst of your frustration and irritability, don't let that come out too much in your conversations where your concern airing instead of your complaining, your concerns, when you're airing your concerns, don't make it be like some huge complaint condemning session where you're screaming at the worship team leader. Just tell them, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's frustrating me. You know, it's that classic advice, like, never attack the other person. Don't say the word you. Say, this is how I'm feeling. And I think that that's so true. I think people cannot discount how you're feeling. Like, and not that our feelings are more important than the truth. But if you say, man, I know for me, I'm not ready on Sunday mornings when we only get the songs the day of. That doesn't work for me. And I think, like, I know I said I never want to tell anybody to quit a worship team, but I think maybe we do get to the point, and I don't know if you're at this point or not. So I'm just working from what you told me. So get somebody's second opinion on this that knows you. I think at some point, though, it's like, listen, I can't serve the way that I need to serve to feel comfortable. And honestly, I'm kind of embarrassed when I serve on Sunday because I'm not able to be fully prepared. And if that keeps happening, like, I don't know if I can keep serving on the team. Like, it's that frustrating to me. And I think if you come with that humble attitude, I gotta imagine that you'd see change on your team. Or you don't. And you realize, I just need to step back and, like, maybe that's like the thing that gets the worship team leader to take notice. And once again, that is not the first step that you take. I'm just spitballing here. If I had a team of 7 people and then all of a sudden it's me and one other person, I'd be like, I did something wrong. Like, I don't know what I did, but I need to talk to those people and figure out why they left the team. So once again, that's not the first step. Don't hear me say, quit your team tomorrow. Work through those other things I talked about first. That's not an easy situation. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. But if you are a worship team leader, just like I talked about in the first question, we want to be leaders who are prepared and know what we're doing. That's why I put together the Worship Team Toolkit. You can find it linked down in the description below. In the Worship Team Toolkit, you will find my application form that I give to new members who want to join the team, and you will find the code of conduct, the expectations that I hold my worship team to, which actually also holds me to those expectations as well. For instance, if I say, I'm going to get you your music a week in advance, and that's what they committed to, then it's actually an expectation for me as well. So you'll find all of that linked in the description below. It's called the Worship Team Toolkit. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.